speaker in this in your class. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself really quickly. I have been in the early childhood education field for about 20 years now, and I have been a preschool teacher for about 14 years. And I worked with a really good program under Child Parent Center Head Start. And so a little bit about how I started my work is I actually didn't think that my child needed early child care. I didn't think my firstborn needed to go into preschool. I actually wanted to keep her as long as possible that I could until she could enter kindergarten. I even talked about having her to go into school until first grade, but I had a friend of mine who asked me to volunteer in one of the Head Start classrooms, and it was totally different than what I thought it would look like. I thought I would see a lot of children sitting down in little desks with worksheets, tracing letters, and the teachers having a very strict, rigorous scheduling, and it wasn't anything like that. As a matter of fact, when I first went into the classroom, I saw a lot of positive reinforcement. I never heard the word no. What I did here is, instead of saying things like, we don't run in the class, or no, don't run, it was, remember the rules, we walk in the class, and do you remember why? And so they were able to understand a little bit better about why we have rules, because we actually tell them the reason. And so there was a lot of things that I loved about this. And one of the things that I did learn was developmentally appropriate practices. And most of us as parents, we think children are like little adults, and in reality, they're not. They're at the moment where they're barely learning. They're experiencing everything around their world. And one of the examples I'm just gonna say really quickly is when I worked at the 3-year-old classrooms, this is when they're starting to develop their language, and this is when they're learning how to talk and just give their ideas about everything around the world, right? And I remember reading, I was showing them a book about the moon, and this little boy, he was barely, he was having, he was getting speech therapy, so he was still, learning how to talk, and so he went up to me and he said, "The moon, it's not made out of cheese." I'm like, "No, I mean," and it's like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "I know you've seen it in cartoons that it is, but," and once they, that when you first see that, they first realize something new in their life, you get really excited, and then when they repeat it to you, it's amazing. So that's just a little bit of of my background. I'm passionate about working with children. I am the community of practice coordinator for the Tohono Community College. I help ECE professionals, like ECE students, towards degree completion. And if they're out in the field, I help them with coaching, anything they need in the classroom, whether it be learning environment, whether it be resources, whether it be anything they're dealing with any children or families in their classroom. So let's get started with this session. And I'm so sorry it's going to be going. I wish I could talk about this for the rest of Dr. Peterson's semester, but unfortunately I can't. But I'm really excited about sharing this information with you. So I'll go ahead and share the screen. Share. And let me, from beginning. Okay, so today we're going to be having 2 topics, and it's just, I feel like I'm just going to be touching on the surface of these topics. So we're going to be talking about developmentally appropriate practices, and we're also going to be talking about crucial conversations, which is also another topic I'm passionate about. And crucial conversations is basically, when you get into conversations that are difficult to deal with, I have some tips for you on this. So one of the things that is really hard for anybody to understand is that children learn through play. When you go into a preschool classroom or a child care center, which is with younger 0 to 3, all you see is children playing. You see them playing in the block area, playing in the manipulative area. There's a science area, and they're all playing. You don't see a teacher telling a child what to do. You actually have teachers guiding children to what they like to do, and you'll learn a little bit that when children are doing something that's meaningful to them and that it is an interest for them to do, they learn a lot better than being told what to learn. So teachers just guide children for them to be able to learn how to learn, but not teach them what to learn. So we could learn many things about children by interacting with them through a developmentally appropriate way. And I'll tell you the definition of that in several ways in a little bit. And it should also be in a natural environment, in the classroom, in their home. You should always have the child feel as comfortable as they can. And if it's in their own home, that will be perfect. If it's with other children, where you could kind of guide them to still be in the same environment, but still be able to have a one-on-one with them, that would be the perfect place to have it. So I'm just going to read a little bit about on this research. We know that a growing body of behavioral research establishes relationships between children's play and development in several ways, which include language, executive functions. We have, like I mentioned, math, spatial skills, scientific thinking, and very important social and emotional development. And so all of these things are important for them to be able to be successful in their future years in school. And one of the things that we've also learned is the science of learning, and this has 4 key ingredients for successful learning. And we know that learning occurs best when children are mentally active. And this means that they're not passive, they're not ignoring you, they're actually thinking about what they're playing with, what they're doing. They're engaged, not distracted. They're socially interactive, not only with other children, but with adults as well. They know how to communicate with adults properly. And that's one of the things that children learn in preschool and in the earlier years is how to get along with other people using their words instead of using either their body or angry gestures or screaming. We give them very, very different ways on how to approach their feelings, which help them throughout their whole entire life. So one of the things that I grew up, because I started really young working, and I could say I grew up with early childhood, is they threw around the word DAP, and we weren't really clear what that meant. I mean, we knew that it was developmentally appropriate practices, but what did that really mean? What does it look like? And so, we've tried to figure it out so it's really, really clear for educators to know. And it's important if you ever are in a classroom setting with other children, it's important that that you are using these techniques in order for you to get the most benefit in learning about the child. And we know that an early childhood educator or caregiver nurtures. Do you notice there's not the word teaching? It's nurturing the child's social, emotional, physical, and cognitive development by basing practices on research and theories of child development, which consists of individual needs of each child and the child's cultural background as well. So you really need to work with the families. And usually when you have any child with any disability or is going through any type of challenge, you sometimes get to talk, to either somebody that you're referring them to, and you get to be, if they do get an IEP, it's very important that you are a part of it, so you know exactly what the plan is. And so, and this is when you ask questions also about their cultural background, and you also want to understand what typical development and learning at different ages is. For example, you would want to know what children from 0 to 3 typically should know. And we have tools like Ages and Stages. We have other programs like Teaching Strategies Gold that help us understand where a child is at. And this knowledge based on research, because we as teachers are researchers. We learn about the children every day by observations, by watching, by hearing, by listening to them, what it is that they like to do, what it is that they know how to do, what it is that they need help. And not only this, but we're also learning about their family, their background, where their community is, and what challenges they have. So it's really important knowing about a child development and learning where they're at. And also knowing what is culturally important, like I just said right now, you have to make an effort to get to know the children's families. And learned about the values, expectations, and factors that shape their lives at home. Sometimes we go into a community, or maybe if we go into a classroom, or we meet a client and their families, and right away we might have an idea of what they are, who they are, and we have a lot of our own opinions on the family, and we have to go in there with an open mind, with a clear mind of saying, everything, my opinions of what I've maybe you've heard from other parents, maybe it's just your own history of your experience, but it's important that you go in and learning a child's life with a blank slate, or with an open mind. So let's cross our fingers. I am hoping, oops, let me see, let me go back. Hold on a second. Let me go ahead and sorry about that. Let me go back, and I hope this video plays. Let me just give it a little bit. Oh, there you go. All right, so we're gonna see another educator give us the definition of developmentally appropriate practices, just so you could see that we try to say the same thing. And I love the passion that this teacher has. And it's a very short video, just so you could understand a little bit of what it looks like. So bear with me. I hope this video plays. It's a really short video. So after this video, we're going to go ahead and get into crucial conversations, because that's another topic that I'm really interested about. But before I play this video, I just want to express again that when you go into a classroom with a child, it's really hard for them to open up to you, because it's a brand new world, it's brand new adults, and they don't know how to socialize with other children. So before if there's any time that you have to work with a child in their own environment in a classroom, it's really, really important that you first talk to the teacher, and you first read anything that a child has, look at their work, learn about their family, learn about if it is a mental health challenge that they're going through. Try to learn as much about the treatments they had in the past, or if it's something that the whole family is going through. And also, when you try to talk to a child as well, you want to play with them. You want to have toys with you. If it's a child who's musically inclined, who loves to sing, of course you want to know that they are like that, and you bring music. You learn songs that you want to have with them, because they learned in the classroom. You might want to learn classroom songs that they learned, maybe an easy one that everybody knows, the Itsy Bitsy Spider, and they'll know that you know what their interest is. If a child loves to paint, you could always join them while they're painting. and you could talk to them and or listen to them as they're talking, and you could get to learn a lot about a child just by listening to them. And also just being around when the parents are there to pick up or when they're there to drop off their child, just so you could kind of see that relationship that that parent has with the child in that little bit of time. Does anybody have any questions before we move on to the video? I know I'm going a little too fast, but in progress. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tracy. Okay, I'll go ahead and play this video. Let me know if you could hear it. Can you all hear it?
Yes.
Thank you.
How are you? Dr. Nefertiti Porter here with the Devereaux Center for Resilient Children. I'm really glad that you're here. Welcome to our limited series. You know, our limited series is designed to help us.
Oh. I'm so sorry about that.
Hello there, my friend and colleague. How are you? Dr. Nefertiti Porter here with the Devereaux Center for Resilient Children. I'm really glad that you're here. Welcome to our limited series. You know, our limited series is designed to help us take concepts and ideas and just talk about them in small chunks over a period of time. And this time around, we are trying to take concepts that we often all hear all the time, but what do they even really mean? And how can we make sure we have a shared understanding about these terms? And I'm really excited to bring today's term. And I really feel like this is a good video to share with all of those in your network, your staff, your families particularly, because this is a good one. And so you ready? Today, before I introduce you to the actual term, I want to tell you when I was first introduced to this term, I was actually introduced to the acronym first. You ready for the acronym? Remember this one? DAP. Does everybody remember DAP? DAP? Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. That's the term I was introduced to first in my career as we get ready to unfold this term together. DAP stands for Developmentally Appropriate Practices. Yes, that's what DAP stands for, Developmentally Appropriate Practices. And in this first video, I just want to put forth a definition of developmentally appropriate practices. And then I invite you to keep learning with me. So let's first look at a definition of developmentally appropriate practices. According to the National Association for the Education of Young Children, developmentally appropriate practices are methods that promote each child's optimal development and learning through a strengths-based approach, play-based approach, and joyful, engaged learning. Oh, I love that. Did you take all of that in? I love what they said. I got my notes down here on my phone because I was just thinking with you, wow, if every parent knew what developmentally appropriate practices looked like, and if every teacher was trying his or her best to lean into children's strengths, to provide play-based experiences as often as we can, and did you catch that magical word of joy? Oh, that would be amazing, right? And so today, I just want you to hold on to the definition of developmentally appropriate practices. Here's one more look at the full definition of developmentally appropriate practices. Is that some good stuff right there? Oh my goodness, I am so excited that we can talk about this together. And again, I invite you to share this with others that you work with, that you share space with, anybody that's raising a young child. They need to understand this. So please share the video with someone else. Now, we're going to have a few more things to talk about. In our next video, we're going to talk about the areas of development for children. And then stick around because I want to tell you how I had messed up developmentally appropriate practices as a parent. And I'm a parent that knows better, and I done messed it up. So make sure you come back and talk about those things with me. And then before the series is over, we'll talk about just some ways that we can keep this.
So this is a series, and it's a really interesting series where you can learn a lot about developmentally appropriate practices. And I could share my story of how I messed up developmentally appropriate practices as a parent at first, but I want to hear your thoughts about this video just quickly. What are your opinions on it? Or have you ever heard of developmentally appropriate practices before? Is this new to all of you?
This is new to me.
Yeah, this is new to me as well.
Yeah, it's new to me.
I've
Okay, and what do you
worked
think?
with, I'm sorry, but I've worked with people, our kids before, and as I was reading the definition, it kind of goes with the Native American approach of focusing on their strength, focusing on what they're strong at, and developing that so that they can gradually. But the way I would define it is whatever deficit or whatever they're lacking, their strength will help them out at that level.
Exactly. Yes, thank you, Klein, right? Okay, yes.
Yes.
And Jamie, I noticed
Right.
you had your hand up. Do you have a question as well?
No, I had already said that this is all new. I've never heard of this.
Okay. Yeah, Elsa, if you don't mind, a lot of the individuals going into the field that they're going into, if they're going to work with children, they're going to usually have children who have reportedly been acting out, aggression issues, those types of things. I'm thinking specifically children in this age group, especially from about 2 to about 6. You work with a lot of children who have attachment disorders, those types of things. How do you determine the difference between what is developmentally appropriate for that child so that you can guide them versus when it's something that is really abnormal and might need some other type of intervention? How does that work within the ECE world, and how do you work with that?
Okay, so thank you for that question, Dr. Peterson, because one of the things that we deal as early childhood educators, preschool teachers, is that we do have children that come into the classroom that are dealing with a lot of aggression and a lot of type of this typical type of behavior when they're going through some sort of trauma. And so one of the things that we do whenever we do have a child with a challenging behavior is we do have mental health consultants that we can make referrals to, but sometimes during that time, while we're making referrals and they come and they do their observations, we have to deal with the child's behavior at that point. And most of the times, whenever we're going to make referrals, we do have forms, again, like the ages and stages, or we have other observation tools like teaching strategies goal that show us that this child does need a little bit more help. And we usually do, whenever they do start getting some sort of help, it usually starts with family counseling to sort of get to learn where the child is at. And usually after that, once the therapist learns where the child is coming from, then they come and they try to do a one-on-one with the child in that natural environment. And they take notes as to how they interact with other children. Now, before all that happens, the teachers need to know how to handle all of these situations before we get any type of advice from a mental health provider before we are there at their IEP or IFSP, right? Where they tell us exactly what the plan is and how everything's going to work. We use something called conscious discipline, and I wish I had more time to touch on this, because this is a reflective practice other than developmentally appropriate practices. We also guide children in how to deal with their emotions by first teaching them what emotions are. Because one of the things that adults don't understand is that children aren't born with those types of ideas of what being angry means and what are you supposed to do when you're angry. Usually they do what they see adults around them do. And sometimes one of the things that I messed up doing developmentally appropriate practices with my child is I spanked my child. I spanked, and that was, I know most of you still do, and I'm not judging, of course, but one of the things that I learned is that when I realized why my child was acting in some sort of behavior, and I changed my mindset to a reflective sort of practice to kind of step back and think, why is this bothering me? And why am I being annoyed with her reaction or to her action? And once I started thinking about, wow, I don't like that my child does not pick up her plate after she, even if I've told her every day, and so one of the things that I had to do is learn a lot of what my child was doing. Like, for example, when she would get angry and she would have a temper tantrum, I'm sorry. I learned about the science of what's happening in a child's body and why they can't really react to you when you're trying to tell them, stop yelling. Because most parents, whenever they see a child having a temper tantrum at Walmart, right, and they're screaming on the floor and they're yelling, usually their reaction is, be quiet, stop it, I'm never bringing, and it's all negative, right? But if you, as a parent, if you know what is going to happen at the supermarket, this is just an example, and I could go on again. And it works in the classroom too. If you understand that a child might be hungry, that a child might be angry because they're tired, that a child might just be bored. And if you're prepared and you have those types of interventions to be able to work with that child, you'll be able to be successful in going through that temper tantrum in a more helpful way. And this will be a learning moment for both of you. So if you know that during a temper tantrum, you have to let it set, but you have to teach the child to know what a healthy temper tantrum is. And in a classroom, let's say, for example, if you're working with a child who you know has anger management challenges, you would want to have, like, I don't know, it depends on how severe this might be for the child, but you might want to have a little bag with you where they could have the squishing toys, or you might have a little pillow where they could put it in their face and scream if that's what they need to do. You might have a little stomping pad where they could express their anger in a healthy way without hurting anybody. And if they still feel like they need to let it out, you could always have ask the teacher if they could go. One of the things I've seen is have teachers, if there is an opportunity, go out with a child and let all of that energy out, and afterwards talk about what it is that you were feeling and what happened, and then you have dialogue with the child on what was going on, and you get to understand a lot of the things that are happening and their frustration. Did I answer your question, Dr. Peterson?
I think so. I think, the understanding the child, and this is the important thing. And you talked about it earlier about the importance of observation. And that can't be understated when it comes to children, but also those interviews with the teacher, the interviews with the parents, and really finding those connections to the child. I was wondering if you could speak to, because I know that you do the community of practice for the Tohono Nation, and I know you've worked in more Western-based Head Starts and early childhood centers. And Klein kind of mentioned, a Native American approach about gaining on the child's strengths and whatnot. A lot of times children's treatment modalities are what we call canned or box treatments, meaning that they're normed in some university somewhere in New York or Minnesota or California, and you're supposed to deliver those treatment modalities based on that canned process. But can you speak about, especially in my opinion, working in a Native American nation, the importance of making the setting, the place appropriate for the child? And I know this extends beyond Native American communities. We should be doing this with all communities, but we know that a lot of treatment modalities and a lot of educational modalities are a Western forced thing in Native American communities. But we also know that when a Native American community makes it relevant for them, their children are much more successful. So could you kind of talk to that? I know Klein kind of, so if Klein, if you have any more to add to this as well, I'd be interested in hearing that.
Okay, so I'll try my best to answer this question, but I think what Dr. Peterson is wanting me to touch a little bit on is the learning environment in a classroom. And one of the what I could call it strategies I like to use is having the classroom be represented by the community a child lives in. And so, for example, if we go into a preschool classroom in Sal's, it's going to look totally different than a preschool classroom in Tucson. Right? Because the culture and community, the values and everything that you have with a child in Sal's is totally different than what it looks like for a child in Tucson, because there's two totally different communities. In a classroom, in a learning environment in Sal's, you're going to see many things. Like, for example, you're going to see pictures of if it's rodeo event time, you're going to have pictures of the rodeo up. You're going to have pictures of the what it is that we harvest out there, and you're going to also have it all in English, and also you're going to have the O'odham language on there, and you will also want to have hear a lot of the O'odham language, in order for them to be able to understand that that is part of their community and their culture, that the language is very important for them to also learn. Not only that, but also include Native American books that are relevant to where they live, and not only have field trips to the zoo, but have field trips to, let's say we've had field trips to TOCC where they learn how to garden local plants. Not only that, but we show them how they can harvest, how they could prepare it, and what foods come out of this. So it's really important that we also make the classroom and the learning environment culturally, developmentally appropriate as well. And the classroom will not look like any other classroom, because you're going to have activities out with where the children are at. So you're not going to have any classroom, let's say, for example, that has something that you're supposed to be already counting to 10 to 100, when none of the children know how to count into 100. You're going to want to have something fun for them to play, to be able to practice rotation counting, and then in a fun way, and then you could observe, and they're going to be in their own little environment. You could even use outdoor, like, for example, I've used rocks to count, and we've painted them and been able for them to use. Did I answer your question, Dr. Peterson?
Yeah, and I'd also like to hear from Klein as well. I think this is.
Oh, yeah. One thing that I was taught was that don't be discouraged if your first initial contact doesn't go as you have planned.
Right.
If you come, if you do a home visit and you have in your mind these are step 1, steps 2, step 3, and by the time I believe we will be at step 8. You go in thinking like that, but they welcome you in, they tell you to come eat, or they tell you about what they did all weekend, the upcoming ceremonies, the upcoming weather, how grandma's doing, and so forth. You have been successful because you have been accepted by the child's family. And that is the first step. That was something that I was taught. So if you go into a home and they say, come down and have some fried bread, you sit down and eat fried bread with them, and they share everything with you. And the next time they might say, okay, you're here for so-and-so, what will he be learning in school? So that was the first thing I was taught was, they are in charge, you are there for them, and you go by working with them. You don't tell them what to do, but you work with them to meet the goal of that child that you're visiting.
Oh, wow, Klein, you explained that perfectly. Yeah, because it's so hard. I mean, just as adults to have to talk to a stranger, right? Like as you meet them and have to share things, that's intimidating for all of us. So we actually have to have families trust. It's the trust, right? And we do that by by accepting like dinner or talking about, did you go to, like, for example, did you hear about that white eye up at Gouveau? How was that, right? And once you start sharing about, or they will start sharing with you as soon as they gain that trust. But again, like Klein said, it's that acceptance at first, and it might not work at first because it takes longer for other families than it does for others. So thank you, Klein, for that. Okay, so does anybody have any other questions? I know I just touched I mean, we could go really in depth with this topic. And if I'm invited again, I'm willing to do another session on this. But I would really want to talk about really quickly for the next 20 minutes. If you don't have any questions on our next topic on crucial conversations. Is everyone okay?
I have no questions at this time.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna go really quickly through this crucial conversation. And again, this PowerPoint will be available. It's being recorded, so you could go back and listen to a lot of the things that we're talking about. But the definition of crucial conversation is a discussion between two or more people, where it's kind of difficult, stakes are high, the opinions are really strong, and emotions are also really strong. So crucial conversations is a way that is going to be less painful for everyone. And I know sometimes in our field, we sometimes deal with parents or with families who are getting the wrong signal, and they end up being angry with us, and we need to learn how to resolve and how to deal how to deal with these conversations in a healthy way. And so I'm going to go over like, for example, things like when communicating, you have to stay focused on your goals to avoid reacting emotionally, because it's really hard for us to get off track when you start reacting emotionally when you're in a crucial conversation. You want to create safe conversations by showing the other person you value their opinions, right? You need to let them know that you're listening to them and that you're valuing every single opinion they give, even if you're not agreeing with them at the moment, but you need to show that you value their opinions. And I'm going to show you what the state method is to resolve conflict when it arises. And that's just an acronym. And I'm just asking if you're ready to have a positive, constructive conversation when it really counts, right? And so we need to know that you need to stick to your goals during the discussion. So like we talked about earlier, emotions run high in conversations, and sometimes we don't feel safe, right? And it could either go in through silence or violence. And neither of these options are good. And so what do we do to avoid this, right? We have to remember our goals. So if we're going through a conversation and you have a parent who's angry, we have to remember what our goal is in order for that parent. And we've all been in a position where we need to settle something important, right? And we may be tempted to turn to silence or violence, but again, we need to find that solution, and neither of these will help. And we need to remember, what is my purpose in this conversation? What information do I want to get across clearly to our clients, to our family, to this person, right? So it's really important to always keep in mind your goals. And another acronym that I like to use is called AMP, and you like to ask, mirror, paraphrase, and prime, right? And one of the things you want to do at first is you want to ask, to kind of get the ball rolling, kind of you want to say, I would love to hear your opinion about this topic, and really listen to see what it is that they're thinking about this. And you want to mirror to confirm their feelings. Like, for example, you seem a little unsure about this. Is this correct? And you want to paraphrase, also acknowledge their story. Like, for example, you would want to say, so if I understand you correctly, you said this, and so you really want to make sure that you're getting the understanding of what they're saying. And the last one is prying. If you feel you're getting nowhere, and if someone climbs up, because that tends to happen sometime, we might need to encourage them by kind of suggesting what we think they might be feeling. And you might even want to use the word guess. I guess, I'm guessing, maybe I'm thinking you must think I'm being unfair. And so maybe you could get a little bit out of more information out of parents, right? And 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I like this book too, because it seeks you to understand first, then to be understood. So I like this AMP, this ask, mirror, paraphrase, and prime. And Dr. Peterson, please interrupt me if there's anyone who has a question on chat or anything. Okay, so you want to use the STATE acronym, right? And like I said earlier, crucial conversations, they might be charged on both ends, but they don't have to end in silence or violence. And so you want to share the facts. When you begin a conversation, make sure you give facts and not your story or your opinion. And next, you can tell your story and share the assumptions you made, right? Because that's sometimes when you tell someone, oh, I was thinking, I thought, it kind of helps the other person understand where you were at. The A is ask for the other's path. Let them tell their story, right? You want to always ask what it is that they're trying to let you know. And let me have a drink of water. Hold on a second. Does anybody have any question before we go on? Okay, so we also want to talk tentatively. Like, gosh, always remember that what you're thinking, your opinion, your assumptions, they're not facts. So you want to leave those out, right? And it's so easy for us to always assume and give our opinions when we're not when we're like, going through a highly charged conversation. And we want to encourage testing. Want to encourage the other person to tell their viewpoint again, even if it is opposite from yours. And so after you calm the conflict, because after you practice all these things, and it will take practice, you start working towards a solution. And this can happen in a variety of ways, like by setting boundaries, or maybe having a vote. If it's more than several people, you could have a vote. You could have one person, you can let one person make a decision, or you could also have like maybe brainstorm together and come to a conclusion together, right? Which what is best for both parties. But the important thing is that you need to work to a real solution, whatever it may be. And you always have to remember your goals, remember to listen, and also remember that you need a solution at the end of this, right? And again, I'm just touching very on top of the surface of this, because this is a whole book that you will be seeing at the end. So we want to talk about what, let me see, it is, okay, we still have time. So this is where we're going good. So want to see the big picture, right, on what this looks like. So we want to talk about when we are having a crucial conversation and we're feeling irritated and angry, and the other person is also, we want to make sure that safety first, that we are safe first. And again, opinions are going to be really high, emotions are going to run strong. So it's helpful to remember to allow all participants to feel safe, right, to express their opinions, and to ensure that all involved have expressed their opinion and added necessary facts to the decision-making process, right? So you want to make sure you include everyone. And you want to let the facts lead. And for example, while it can be easy to confuse the stories we tell ourselves, which may not be the whole truth, and the facts, always focus on the facts. Go back to the facts. Abandon your absolute certainty by like distinguishing between hard facts and your invented story. Because again, when emotions are running high in a conversation, you tend to have that happen, and you won't get into a solution, right? And so you want to look within. And one of the keys to successful crucial conversations is having an open dialogue. Again, having an open mind, right? And to do so, you must start with yourself. Like I said, look within yourself. Well, you can't be sure you can control anyone else in the dialogue. You can control yourself, right? You can't control the person in front of you, but there's not much you can do to change others, but there is much you can do to change yourself. And I always try to look towards that because as an educator, I have come across a lot of crucial conversations, and these are strategies that do help calm the situation. You want to find a mutual purpose, right? You want to, when engaged in a crucial conversation, it's necessary to find a mutual purpose. And normally that's what we're trying to do, but we tend to get a little bit involved in so many emotions and so many opinions that we don't see that we have a mutual purpose, which means that others perceive that you're working towards a common outcome in a conversation, right? That you care about their goals, that you care about their interests and their values, and vice versa. And so once you talk about your goal and what we're trying to do, it will lead towards personally desired outcome, right? And curiosity is the key. I mean, we need to kind of get curious and ask questions like during crucial conversations. It's really common for people to either shut down or walk away or react with anger. And in order for us to bring dialogue back to a safe place, it's really important to become curious. You need to ask questions and find out why they are feeling the way they are. And you could be really sincere when trying to get the source out of their anger or denial. I mean, because at that point, if you're asking, it's because you really don't know, and they really need to see that you're sincere about your question. And so one of my favorite takeaways about this book is when people become furious, they become curious. This adds a new dimension to our performance character trait of curiosity, right? So I just think when people become furious, you have to become curious as why they're acting this way. And I love this in this book. And so does anybody have any questions? We have a couple more to go.
Elsa, I do have a question. So you mentioned becoming, when someone becomes furious, become curious, because one of the big issues in a treatment setting is especially when you're working with addicts and people who have aggression issues, all those kinds of things, is that there's always that fear in the mind of especially the counselor or the therapist about the reaction of the client. And you know, when you start seeing things build up within a group setting or something like that, I'm just kind of curious. These techniques are something that I think need to be practiced, correct? I mean, you really should practice them over and over and over, kind of like in the military when you train over and over and over. I'm just wondering, is there any suggestions about when you're starting to see that conflict and you yourself are starting to get anxious and concerned and worried about your own self and how you're going to react to this appropriately? Is there any kind of mind tricks about, you know, the furious to curious kind of tricks, those kinds of things that that you've come across with this crucial conversation?
Okay, so one of every single crucial conversation looks different, but when you do start feeling a little bit nervous, you start, you know, feeling your hands start to get, you know, sweaty, you start sweating, you start feeling your heart. One of the things that you really need to kind of observe is to see how the person is reaction, and kind of to step back and kind of observe and see what your next steps are, and kind of understand where this person is coming from and try to understand where their anger is coming from. So I think that's one of the first things that you really need to do, and stay safe. If you feel like this person is being really aggressive, you need to find a spot where you're going to be safe and you're not going to be hurt. And once the situation is a little bit better, that the person is not acting aggressively, where you feel you have to call the police on any point, then you have to find a place where you can go ahead and then use these strategies that, again, do take a lot of practice. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. This is Naomi.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
Naomi. Yes.
So just when you were talking about that, you know, one of the responses that I've heard, I guess, when a client or someone in the group is getting mad with you or mad at you, is responding with, "I'm sorry you feel that way," a good approach? Followed by what?
So one of the things you could do is use the I statement, which is taking the responsibility away from you blaming them, kind of saying, I feel you don't like this. Instead, you're saying, oh, my cat is all over my computer. Oops, I'm sorry. Is using the I statement and saying, I feel you're feeling this way because, and then, you know, you try to kind of not assume what they're feeling at first, but you try to use the I statement. Like, for example, I feel you're very, very angry because one of the situations was I I feel you're angry right now because am I understanding right? Because you feel you're being charged extra for the childcare fee, right? And so you're putting yourself in that place where you're not telling them they're angry, but this is what you're perceiving. So it kind of lays the responsibility off of them, and they're able to kind of explain to you, no, I'm angry because of something. So you're giving them an opportunity for them to answer that question without you actually telling them. Did that answer your question,
Thank you.
Naomi?
Yes, thank you.
Anybody have any other questions? Okay. Okay, so you want to watch your words because, again, words matter. What we say matters, and the way we say it matters. This doesn't mean we shouldn't engage in crucial conversations, right? We just have to approach them with purpose, right? And sometimes we have to act quickly because we get into these crucial conversations from 1 minute to another, and that's why we have to practice them, right? And we don't want to turn to sarcasm. We don't want to turn into humor or negative body language instead of engaging in a dialogue, because it's not productive, and words matter too. What we say matters. This doesn't mean we shouldn't, like let's say, for example, sometimes we might want to use sarcasm and when we're angry, and that'll just make the situation a lot worse. But I have always been in the mindset that actions speak louder than words. And after reading Crucial Conversation, it really opened my eyes to how many of these conversations I have regularly applied these strategies to, and that have worked. So it's kind of like when you have that mindset that your actions speak louder than words, sometimes that helps when you're in a situation like that, right? And so what you say versus what they hear. A conversation can be interrupted in so many ways. So really think before you speak. Like, for example, there's often a gap between what we say, what we mean, and how someone else perceives what was said. And this is something that I feel like, and I'll just mention, between my husband and I, we sometimes have to take a step back and really focus on what it is that we're saying, because I sometimes hear something that I sometimes understand something that he said he didn't say, or vice versa, right? So we really need to be able to know what we say, what we mean, and how someone else perceives it, right? And ask them if that is what it is they understood. So we also don't want to, I left this one out of, but it's my way or the highway. We never want to take that approach whenever we're approaching a family. And sometimes when we're angry, we want to say that because the stakes are high, and you're trying to have someone understand what you're trying to tell them. And so we don't want to do what the book says, which is my way or the highway. We want to go in with an open mind, just like Klein said, right? Really listen up, really listen to see what the family really wants, how they want to engage you. And you want to really listen. Again, be genuine when asking others to share their facts and their stories. And as they share, it's important to remember, how to be like a skillful listener. Ask, mirror, paraphrase, and prime, and always self-assess for success. Be a vigilant self-monitor. It's important to dialogue, right? Make sure to frequently step out of the discussion and evaluate your own actions and reactions, right? Then evaluate how others are reacting to you, and then you can adjust your behavior to return to the common goal. Yeah, so the most important thing I could do for success, or you can do for success in crucial conversation, is self-evaluation, right? Self-reflection, I like to call it that. And I like to say I can only change me and my thoughts and my reactions. And I know what my end goal is, and it's not to make assumptions, and to stay calm and logical. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions? I know it is a lot of information and I know you have a lot of questions. But I could come back maybe next week. But unfortunately my time has ended. I could take one quick question if anything.
Once again, going back to my traditional teaching was that as a young parent, I was always told, "Me ate hatiyo sera," meaning it's a young child, it's not an adult. It does not learn, it does not know. You have to teach with patience.
Exactly. I'm trying to stop the share. Sorry about this. Okay, yes, I really like that because we do have that assumption that children already know how to react when they're angry, how to, sometimes it's like adults assume that children know how to react with other human beings, when in reality they're learning from us. They're learning what, parents are the first teachers in a child's life. So thank you for sharing that.
All right, gang. I think with Klein's statement, especially working with children, and thanks to Elsa, I think this is where we should end. I do know that she has another appointment she needs to get to. So I look forward to reading everybody's reflections, and we'll continue a lot of these conversations because she talked a lot about the things that we need to do, right? Self-reflection, going in and one of the things that I really want to focus on something, and we'll start this next Tuesday, is that we have to remember that when we are in that group setting, we're the observers. We're the ones that are supposed to be learning the most, because that's the only way we can help. And when it comes to things like conflict and crucial, we're the ones that are supposed to have the accurate information. And we can't have that if we superimpose our own ideas or our own emotions or our own feelings. We have to be those absorbers of what people are going through. So we'll continue this conversation next Tuesday, and continue these kind of conversations about handling group settings. And I hope you all got a little bit from at least the early childhood perspective, and I'll make sure that we send out some more resources about things like DAP and meeting children at where they are. I appreciate everybody's participation today. And Klein, really thank you for those words that you said. That was wonderful. So everyone, please have a wonderful weekend. I look forward to reading your reflections, and we will see you all next Tuesday.
Dr. Peterson,
Yes.
so we have a reflection due this week?
No, you don't. Okay, let me rephrase that. I will be setting up individual discussions so we can start discussing your own places. Thank you, Naomi. That was a total mess up on my part. You should be seeing some discussion forums that are just between you and I showing up in Canvas, and we'll start our discussions in there. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Have a good weekend.
You as
Thank
well.
you.